Hi, I'm Rodney, and in this video I'm going to work through some example solves that apply the techniques from the HTR theory video and doc that's linked in the description. It's going to be a little different from what I would do if I were in an actual solve. I'm not going to pay attention to pairs. I'm not going to finish the HTRs. What I'm just going to try to do is illustrate how you can find as many HTRs as possible using those techniques. So I'm going to set a cutoff of 10 moves. I'm going to look for all the HTRs under 10 moves for each of the core corner cases of 2, 3, and 4 quarter turns. The scramble is a 2QT case with an X2, U2, Y2 in the middle. So I have to set up my corners with an R2. Here's the skeleton, R2, U, R2, U2, F2, U. That's 6 moves. So I have 4 move freedom to fiddle with the edges. The first thing I notice is that I have 6 bad edges here, so I should do a U. I'm just going to start with a UD prime, fix that later, and make it easier to recognize these into it, easier to recognize 2 bad edge case. I have my bad edges split 1-1, which is what I need for to end up with 4 bad edges when I get to 1 QT. So the right setup move to set up the corners is F2. So F2, and then U or U prime is actually what I want because I want to stack these bad edges. So F2 U prime, and now I need to get my corners into a 2-2 configuration. So my bad edges into a 2-2 configuration, which means I need a corner swap. Corner swap to bring this one down or this one down, and I'll have the 2 bad edges. So that would look like R2, F2, R2. Now I have 2 edges, so F2, U2, R2, U is the continuation. And that's 9 moves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, and I have lots of possibilities for the corner swap here in the middle. To bring this down, I can do RFR, or I can do L2, F2, L2. I can do also R2, B2, L2. I can do L2, B2, R2. So those will all bring this one down. I can also have corresponding ones that bring this one down. So that would be R2, B2, R2, R2, F2, L2, L2, B2, L2, and L2, F2, R2. So all of those will set up plus 0, F2, U2, R2, U, possibly widen. So you have to, you could try all those if you want, or just pick the ones that look like they form good pairs. But since these are all, notice these are all 9 moves, I'm going to put my cutoff at 10, which means I actually have one more free move that I can use. And that's going to, I can't make any use of that here at the 1 QT case, but I can make use of it here when I'm back at 2 QT, because I can set up my corners. I can put a corner swap to set up the same edge case. So instead of F2, that means I can do L2, F2. So L2, F2 will keep my bad edges 1-1. So L2, F2, U prime, and then my everything looks exactly the same. So I have the same set of corner swap insertions here. So that's a bunch of possibilities to check. I also can, if I set up my corners with a B2, R2, sorry, R2, B2, R2, B2. Now I have, again, it's still 1-1. So then I can do a U. This time it's going to be U instead of U prime. And then I have a whole bunch of corner swap insertions that I can use to bring this one down or this one down. So that's F2, R2, F2, F2, L2, B2, etc. So another 8 possibilities there. And that's a whole bunch of 10 move HTRs. here's the common to Qt case. The corner skeleton is U2, F2, U, L2, U. So that's 5 moves. So I have 5 extra moves to play with to get to my HTR, which is a lot. So there's going to be a lot of possibilities here. Again, I have 6 bad edges. So let me just start with the UD prime. UD prime. So let's just start by setting up directly the corners. So that's U2, R2, and when I set up these corners, I notice that here I've got my 2 bad edges are 2, 0, and I set them up with the 3 bad corner face, and they're on the face that started that started with 3 and ended with 1. So that means there's a cheap corner swap, and in fact that is in this case B2 L2. So U2 B2 L2. This is going to be the shortest HTR. U prime R2 U. Okay. Now, what else can we do? Well, it's worth noting that if I do this BL, I can actually insert a edge commutator LBL BLB for +2. That won't affect my HTR, so I could insert here, but that might be left. L2 B2 L2 B2. That might be better left after I finish the HTR to see if I can if I get a 4E case, but so that's kind of that's the most direct corner setup. So what options do we have? Because if I do because it kind of looks like U2 B2 L2 is the only option, but because I have so many spare moves, I can start inserting slices and corner swaps before that U2 and get other cases. So let's just start trying to those. So here's R2 L2 and then U2 U2 R2. So R2 L2 U2 R2. And now, see, I chose R2, so I have two bad edges, which means I know I can fix it with a corner swap. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's going to give me 10. And that corner swap is going to be L2, F2, L2, right? Corner swap here. This is in the right place. This needs to go down. L2, F2, L2. And then U prime, F2, U. All right. The other, actually, if I do R2, L2, U2, R2, I can notice that if before I do this R2, if I want to move this, another way to move this down, remember, is to do a slice here. So basically, so R2, U2, and then down here. So that's actually R2, L2, F2, B2 is another one. F2, B2, U2, R2, F2, B2, U2, R2, and now I have my good edges set up. So U, B2, U. So that's one. So that's starting with that R2, L2 slice. If I start with an F2, B2, what do I get? F2, B2, U2. Let me set up so I have my two. So I have my bad edges 2, 0, U2, L2. And now here I am. That's a BRB is going to put this in the right place and bring that down. So B2, R2, B2, and then U prime B2. So that's it for so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's it for inserting slices before that first U2. But now what can I do with corner swaps? Let's just try R2, F2, R2, U2. Now I'm just so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need a cheap fix. So RFRU. Now F2 is not a cheap fix. So let me try LFL, LFLU, LFLU. That's also not going to be. How about RBRU? That is not going to be a cheap fix. LB, LU, also not a cheap fix. How about starting with the F? So FR, FU, and now, yeah, U2, F2. So there we go. F2, R2, F2, U2, F2, and then U prime F2U. So, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's actually relatively cheap. I can also try, well, let's try FLF, U2. That's not going to be cheap. I can try BRBU. That's, I think that might be B2, R2, B2, U2, and then B2, I want my, yeah, B2. That's two bad corners here, so yes. So instead of B2, I do L2, B2. L2, B2. So BRB, ULB, and then UL2U. And then I can also try the the widened corner swaps. So that would be, for example, LBR. All of these LBRU, 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 LBRUB, L2, B2, R2, U2, B2, and that's fixable with a slice. So R2, L2, and then U prime L2U. Am I over my cutoff? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, that's still within my cutoff. R2, L2, B2, U2, R2, B2, L2. So lots of possibilities there for inserting corner swaps and slices before that U2. I can also turn this into a 4 QT case. I'm set up with my 3 bad corners on the top, so I can actually don't need a setup move for that. So that's going to be probably cheap enough to try. So that would be U. So U gets me to these, and then any side move. So basically U R2 is going U R2, and then I'm back to 3. So that's like a 3-move insertion, just like the corner swap. So could end up being the same cost. So let's look at U, but now note that if I just do any side move, So my edges are 3, 1. So if I do any side move the way they are, I'm going to end up with 2, 2 edges. I don't want 2, 2 edges. I want 3, 1 edges for this case. That means, oops, hold on, I paused. So that means I need corner swap to get to 2, 2 bad edges. So that means, so that's like F2, R2, all right? And now I'm gonna do U, F2, R2, U. So this is U, F2, R2, U, and now I need cheap fixes. And this is going to be 1, so that's going to be R2, V2, R2, V2, and then U prime, F2, U. All right, so again, so F2, R2 gives me a possibility. What about R2, F2? I mean, all these are possibilities. U, R2, F2, U. But I need a cheap fix here. U, which I can fix with a slice. So R2, L2, F2, U, L2, U. Lots of positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's yeah, etc. So basically, try all the corner swaps here. If you can fix it with 1 or 2 moves, then that's going to give you within the cutoff. There's one more thing that's worth talking about, which is overshooting, which is another turning this into a 4 QT case where I actually go through the 1 QT case. So what that looks like is, so I do my normal skeleton. So U2, U2, R2, U2, R2, and I'm doing that to set up my bad edges 2, 0, so that when I when I go to 1 QT case, they're going to be still 2, 0, so that's going to be U. But now I want to split them. So U, R2, U, and actually U prime. And now my corners are in HTR. Actually, I was wrong. So that's U. Now my corners are in HTR, but I need an insertion. But I can fix these with a 4 move. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, a 5 move. But remember, I had enough to do that. So that would be like L2, U, F2, B2, D. L2, U, F2, B2, D. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's going a 4 QT case where you overshoot. To overshoot, the cheapest fixed is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I had enough of that. This is the common 3/4 turn case. That's this one, 1, 2, 3, where I have 2 bad corners, and except I have 6 in this case, so I'm going to start with a UD again. I have my 2 bad corners, and they're already split. Now that means I can start my corner skeleton immediately with a U. So U, F2 is the wrong direction, so U prime R2. And then U prime R2, U is the skeleton. 5 move skeleton, so I have a lot of possibilities of HTRs under 10 moves. So looking at the edges, I've got 4 bad edges, and they're in a 3-1 configuration, 3 on the bottom 1. So that means that's a good configuration, so I don't need any setup moves before my U move, so I can just immediately start, and I'll do with a D, so I get to the 2/4 turn case. So it's going to be D prime. And now I'm in 2/4 turn case, and I can find a lot of possibilities again by just bringing my my 2 two bad edges onto the same face, and then doing corner swaps or slices. So that means immediately I can do an F2, and then to fix this, so this will be in the right place, so it's going to be R2, B2, L2. U, F2, U. I can also do a corner swap, so I can do L2, F2, L2, F2, and then I can see that I can fix this with either slice or corner swap, so I can do R2, L2, and then that's U, F2, U, but I can also do, what is it? Let's see. After the corner swap, this needs to go up, so it's going to go B, L2, F2. That was L2, F2, B2, L2, F2, and then that's U prime, R2, U. How else can I bring these two together? Well, of course I can do. I can also do an R2, B2. That sets up my corners with this. So R2, B2, and now I can fix this. Actually, I can fix it two ways. Where I can do a U and then a slice. So I can do U2, R2, L2. And then that's going to be U prime, L2, U. Or I can do FRF, F2, sorry, F2, R2, F2, U prime, R2, U. So that's a bunch of HTRs. Another way, remember, is I can fix this if these are split and they move towards each other. I can fix it at the one QT case for 3 or 4. So that looks like this. If I set up my corners with just a B2, so now here I am, D prime, B2, and now my corner move is a U prime that brings these together. So that's going to be a good swap or a good fix. So that's going to be U prime. And then this is L2, F2, B2, D. L2, F2, B2, D. So that works. How else can I bring these together? I could try R2, F2, and then that's going to actually bring them together. So R2, F2, and then I have U, R2, sorry, U, F2, L2, U, F2, L2, FLF, U. And that's about the most expensive fix I can afford. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So that's all the possibilities just from going directly to QT case. But remember, I can also do any side move before and get a similar corner skeleton. But if I do an R2 or an F2 side move, then I'll mess up my 3-1 edges. So the ones I want to do are F2 and B2. So let's just see what those look like. So if I do F2, D, then I've got, so F2 and then D, and then I can set up my corners with an L2, and then a corner swap, R2, F2, R2. So L2, R2, F2, R2, and then that's going to be U prime, F2, U. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it's still good. And let's see, and I could also do F2, R2, and then F2, R2, and then, yeah. Instead of L2, I can do F2, R2, and then F, R2, B2, U, L2, U. Okay, that was with an F2 setup before my U move. I can also do a B2. And now I can do a B2, D, and then what do I have? I can bring this with an F2, B2, D, and then F2, and now I can fix this with a corner swap. I can fix it with an edge actually, so I could do this R2, L2, B2 instead. Oops. Sorry. F2, and then to fix this, it's going to be L2, L2, B2, R2, F2, L2, B2, R2, U prime F2, U, one, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8, 9. So I could actually afford a second one. I could afford a corner swap, so I could do L2, B2. So this B2D, L2, B2, and now it's that F2 with L2, F2, corner swap to fix, U, L2, U. All right, so now, what else can I do? Because I've got so many moves. What else can I do before my U prime? Well, I can do some slices before my U turn. So if I do R2, L2, and then a U, that is that sets up good. So R2, L2, U, L2, and then so that's short U, F2, U. What about another slice? So if I do F2, B2, D, that's not a cheap fix. So forget that. Those are the only two slice possibilities, but I can also now try some corner swaps. Again, I want my corner swaps to preserve my 3-1 edges. So I don't want FRF, but I can do RFR. So if I do R2, F2, R2, D, that's good. F2, R2, D, so then that's R2. Set up the good edges. U, L2, U. What about LBL? L2, F2, L2. I can start L2, F2, L2, D. That is not going to be a fix. I can't afford more expensive fixes because I did my corner swap in here, so I need cheap fixes after that. So L2, F2, L2 didn't work, but if I did L2, F2, R2, L2, F2, R2, U, then that's another good one. So L2, F2, R2, U, L2, U, F2, U. And then similarly, I can try R2, B2, R2, R2, B2, R2, D. That doesn't look good, but R2, B2, L2, U is good. So R2, B2, L2, U, L2, U, F2, U. And that's the whole slew of 10 move HTRs from this scramble. The scramble is one of the not so good 3QT cases. It's this one. So it looks like my corners are actually set up, but it's going to lead to fake HTFR, right? If I just do U, R2 to F2, that's fake. And I could tell that right away from Hyper-Parity if you're familiar with it, because I'm in this state and my stickers are showing slashes, so a U is going to get me there. So I have to be careful. Well, I need a setup move before my U, and I want one of two setup moves. So nothing is not going to do it. But if I do an F2, then F2U is going to get me to here. So then I can do 1, 2, 3. U2 R2 is a bad setup. That gets me to this state, so that's no good. But R2 U2 F2 gets me here, all whites, so that can go there. 1, 2, 3. So those are the possible corner skeletons. So let me just write that down. So it's F2. The short one is F2 U R2 U2 F2 U prime L2 U. And then there's the long one, R2 U2 F2 R2 U2 F2 U R2 U2 F2 U prime B2 U. Okay, so I'm going to ignore that one. It's too long. But I'm going to, but I can work with this one, and it's not too expensive to check. So I have 6 bad edges, so I'm going to again start with my UD prime to get it to 2. And now my setup move is going to be an R2 or an L2. And what I want in this case is to bring my 2 bad edges together so that they're 2, 0 before my U move. The theory doc tells me that if I set up with an R, then there's no cheap fix after that U move. So I have to bring my bad edges together. So the most straightforward way is to do that with an L, and then I can do a D. Now, remember in this case, what we want is so we have corners that will lead to HTR if we just did a UL2U. So we need to do this R2 to F2 fix. But if our edges look good, then our edges will end up still looking good. So now we can fix our edges with this slice, which means if I fix this and then do my R2 to F2, I can just I'll have a cheap continuation. So F2 U2 R2 sets up my edges good. U prime B2U. And there's not many other possibilities for bringing these two together because I have so few moves to spare. But the other thing I can try instead of L2 is a B2 R2. That brings them together. So with a corner swap, so I can look at that B2 R2 and then U. And now the question is, do these have a cheap fix? Well, the cheapest fix I could do would be a corner swap here. So I could do FR, I could do F2 R2 B2. And then I could start my 3 move by canceling that B2. So that would be U2 F2 R2. But this is already too many moves. I had 3 corner swaps in there. So U prime R2U. That's going to be the shortest that starts with this, but that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The other possibility before is I could insert a slice before my setup move, so I could do F2 B2 and then R2. So let me try that. F2 B2 R2 and then a U, and now I have the same thing. It's going to be a corner swap, so I think it's going to be as best as long as this, except I had 1 additional move. So that's it. And that's all that's going to be all the short HTRs, 10 move HTRs for the scramble. Here's the other not so good 3QT case. It's this one where you set up to a 2QT case with an R2 to F2 in the middle. So I have two ways of setting up my corners here. So I have one possible corner skeleton is going to be F2 and then U prime, F2. That puts my bad corners in the slashes pattern, and then it's U, R2, U2, F2, D. The other way I can also set up my corners with a U2, R2. And then U, F2, and then U, R2, U2, F2, D. So let's look at our edges for HTR. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bad edges. So I'm going to do a UD prime yet again. And now I'm down to 2. And for this case, I want to reach this 2QT case with 4 bad edges. Otherwise, the fix is going to be too expensive. So, and that means I need to split my bad edges here. So when I set up my corners, I set up my corners not with an L2, but an R2 to split my 2 bad edges. So R2, and now I've got U prime. And now I have 3, 1 bad edges, and I need them to be 2, 2 for this case. So I can do that with either an F2 or a B2. So let's do F2. And then U, and then I've got good edges, B2, U2, R2, D, R2, D, and I can also do a B2 here, U, and then R2, U2, F2, D. So what if I try a corner swap here? F2, R2, F2, R2, U. Now I've got 3, 1 corners, but when I need an R2 move here, and I can't get my good corners. So let's see, F2, R2, U. Now I need my corners, my edges to be 2, 2, not 3, 1, but I need an R2 move, so I can do that with an F2, R2. And then I can do U, and then this is going to be an R2, U2, L2, F2, U. So that's not too many insertions at each step, but I think I'm over my limit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So yeah, that's 3 corner swaps. If I can do it with 3 corner swaps, I should be able to get with 1. So no good to set up with R's, but let me try. Let me try this U2. And again, now instead of F2, I want to do B2 to keep my bad edges split apart. So I can use U2, B2, and then U, and here I am in the same situation as before. So where I can do an F2 or a B2. So let me do an F2, U, and now I have B2, U2, R2, D. And instead of this F2, I can also do a B2. U, U. And then that's going to be R2, U2, F2, D. So if you like I say, these three QT cases, if you inverse them, you'll get the other case. So so here we are, 1, 2, 3. We found 5 HTRs within 10 moves, starting from an 8 or 9 move skeleton. So that's what we got for here. Now we come to a 4/4 turn case. This one has two bad corners, so you can you have your choice of paths. You can split them up like this, go through the 3QT case that we saw in the last scramble, or you can bring them together like this, go through the common 3QT case. So I actually have 6 bad corners, 6 bad edges. So let me start with my, I guess it's traditional UD prime. And now, since my corners are already split, it's worth it to check that longer case that we had in the last scramble, since I don't need any setup moves, especially because I have my bad edges 2, 0, so I can start with a D. And now to set up my corners is F2 or B2, but I want to split them apart to get to 4 bad edges when I go to the case, the 2QT case. So that's going to be simplest case is going to be an F2, and then it's going to be U. But now my bad edges are such that when I set up my corners, it's going to be 2, 2 plus, and there's no easy way to get them to 2, 0. So let me back this out. And instead of a B2, let me split them by setting up with instead of an F2, let me do an L2 B2. So do L2 B2. And now when I do a U prime, now when I do a U prime, I've got my I got my 3, 1 edges that I can turn into 2, 2 with an R2. So U prime R2, and now I have U L2 U2 B2D. So that's my first H2R, L2 U2 B2D. I can also try to start with a D prime and do the same thing. So I want to split mine too. So an R2 will split my bad edges, and then I have a U prime, and that's good edges. So that's good 3, 1 edges that I can do with an R2. And remember, in the last scramble, I could do an R2 or an L2. So this, I could also put an L2 here, and I can do an L2 here, but I'm just going to write down the 1. So that's R2, and then U, F2, U2, L2, D. All right, so that's good enough. And that was a D prime. So that's good enough for the direct setup. Let me go through the common 3QT case because two bad edges is going to be good for that. So for that, I want to bring my bad corners together. Like I can do that on either face. An R2 F2 will do either one. So I could do R2. It's going to split. Let me try keeping my corners together right first. So B2, that's good. I could also bring them together with an L2, but then I have my bad corners up here and my bad edges down here, so I'm going to get 6 bad edges, not 2, when I after my U move. So let me bring them together with the B. So that's definitely the better choice. B2, and now a D, and I've got two bad edges, and then there are lots of good ways to get cheap continuations with these two bad edges. So so remember the +0 is when I have actually 2-2 block, so that I can get with a F2 L2. Yeah, and then a U R2. No, it's got to be U prime. A B2. U B2 U. So that's good. L2 F2. What else can I do from this case with from here? I could also just keep them 2-0. I'll remember lots of the if the directionality is right, lots of the two bad edge cases end up good. So let me just try keeping them together this way with an R2 instead of the F2 L2. So that's R2, and then I have D R2, which needs a fix with the slice. So F2 B2 U prime L2 U. And if the directionality is right, I can also get these by splitting. So let me try bringing these apart by splitting them. So that would be with an L2, 2D L2, and now let's see if the directionality is right. U R2 is, yes, good. I have the bad edges. So U R2 U prime F2 R2 U. Good. I could also try F2 R2. So I'm trying all the ways. F2 L2, yeah, F2 R2, U B2. Sorry, it's got to be U prime. U prime, so that's good actually, because U prime. And then F2 L2 gives me the good F2 L2, and then U prime L2 F2 U. And how many was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, okay, that's getting too long. Okay. Let me see if I can get anywhere with a B2 and a D prime, because that also B2 D prime is two bad edges, and all I need, well, yeah, I can set up a 2-2 block here with a B2 R2 when I split them, B2 R2, and now it's a U L2, yeah, U L2 U prime L2 U. That's another one. Okay, so that's all setting up with the B2 to keep them together. But of course, I can enter with 4. I can enter my 3Q2 case with 4 bad edges, and that can work too. So let me try that. So that would be setting up with an F2, and now say U. And I want, now I've got 3-1, and I want to exit this 3Q2 case with 3-1 edges again, so I can do that. So F2 U R2, and now a U B2 shoot, what was that? F2U, R2, F2U, R2U, B2, which I can fix with a slice. R2, L2, U prime, B2U. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so that's still within colors. And so then there might be some others, F2U. Yeah, I actually have a lot of, well, the other possibility, I guess only one possibility here is F2U, L2 still gives me the 3 bad edges. I'm not gonna do that, but I could do also F2U prime, but F2U prime is no good because I won't be able to cap 3 bad edges. So that's it for F2 setup. Can I do even more? So what if I bring them together with this with a corner swap here? So instead of B2, do an R2 F2, and now I'm gonna enter with a good case, so that's gonna be good. So R2 F2 U, and then I split them up by keeping that block. U F2, U L2, prime L2U. And if I can do R2 F2, then I can probably do L2 B2. Sorry, L2 B2. Yeah, L2 B2, and D. And now I want to split these up, which I can do F2 R2. Sorry, that was L2 F2. U U prime B2 U B2 U. So this has, I would say, as many 10 turn HTRs as the 2 QT case, even though it's a 4 QT case. So yeah, here's a bunch of them, and there's a bunch I didn't write. But that's enough for now. So there's a bunch of HTR finding in practice. There are a few things I didn't talk about here, like how to recognize when an HTR is good, when it's okay to break up pairs as you're forming the HTR, when you might want to NIS in the middle. But in general, if you just cycle through these HTRs, it's a good chance you'll land upon the optimal DR finish. So have fun with it.